So today I want to quickly answer one of the questions that someone asked. So let me officially welcome you to this live session with Taiwo Balogun, and it's on the platform of the Nigerian Wealth Shift. So get ready to learn. And you see, it's a live session, but on unscripted and also on edited session. This is not a pre-recorded video, it is live. So I love when I read some comments and come online and I do justice to the question or comment. So today, yes, I want to quickly read something. I posted something yesterday, and what I posted yesterday was about, okay, let me display the screen. It was about, before you invest heavily, borrow money, or look for investors, or begin scaling your business, that you should read this content. And somebody, one of my brothers, my friend, that I cherish so much, ask a question, and I'm going to read that question and then answer the question. You understand? So now, if you also have a question, I'd like you to drop it in the comment section, and I would be glad to answer your question. Now, he said, Sir Taiwo Balogun, this is really well articulated. How can we relate this to the Ford story of the faster horse? Some of us in the digital innovation, we have noticed that some solutions need, I'm teaching because I've been in this space for some times now, and I'm keeping myself on a daily basis, both from the University of Hard Knocks by my late mentor, Dr. Sonny Ojagbaze. He will say he graduated from the University of Hard Knocks. Now, you see, a lot of entrepreneurs mix up these things, and you don't always need to ask the questions. Ask your customers that the question on how to design the solution for them. No, you don't always have to, but you have to go back and sit down and ask, okay, this thing that is happening to these people, how do we solve it? You begin. That's where you are a thinker. An innovator is not just like every other person. You must be able to think deep. If you can think deep, you'll be able to solve problems in life. That's just it. That's just the fact. Let me see some comments. If I can see comments. Okay. Let me see if I can see comment in the comment section. All right. Thank you. Okay. So now let's move on. Now, going further to answer your question, Mr. Paul Ojo, you see, I just established the fact that there's solution, there's customer validation, there's solution validation. You understand? Now, what you are trying yes, I understand what you are asking about. Yes, I understand. Yes, we've spoken off the camera anyway, so I can understand. But for the sake of others who are also building, I need to do this video, because you see, you are trying to understand the problem deeply, at times enough to determine whether solving that problem will create value, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs do. They will try, that's why you see a lot of people will develop this, and they will get to a stage and hold on. Another idea will come up. They will switch to another idea, develop it to a level, and pause, and move to another idea, develop it to a level, and pause, move to another one. And they will not be able to develop a solution, because they are looking for perfect environment or situation, and which that solution that perfect environment or solution will not come until you launch, until you build something, a minimum viable product, which we call MVP. You understand? So it is your job to always see a solution that customers are not yet imagined, that they've not yet imagined. And once you can think about it, that you can imagine it, then you have a solution. You have a solution. I'm going somewhere. Let me see if there are people that are dropping a comment. Okay, I can't see any comments. Thank you. Everyone joining. Thank you. Now, like I said, just because customers have a problem, just because a customer or customers have a problem does not mean that the solution you invented is automatically the right solution. Please take note of this. Take note of this. I said something in one of the programs I facilitated a few days ago, and I told them, I said, see, most of the times we entrepreneurs, innovators, inventors, most of the times we are too in love with our solution. We fall in love with our ideas. This idea would solve problem. You are the only one that fell in love with it. Meanwhile, you are not that in love with the problem. So it is that time we begin to see things from the perspective of the customers, and that's why in product design or in product design thinking, there is a framework. And the first, it depends on the model that you are working with anyway. The first acceptable or globally acceptable framework is empathy. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the customers. How are they feeling? That is when you know how to solve their problem. So, like I said, that just because customers have a problem does not mean that the solution you are creating or that you've invented is the automatic problem or is automatically the right solution. No. You understand? What happened is you must first of all develop a minimum viable product. MVP is very, very important. And like you said, I think I need to read your question again. Your question says, how can we relate this to fourth story? Okay, I think I've cleared that fourth story. Some of us in the digital innovation, we have noticed that some solutions need real product at the minimum viable level to test viability. What do you think? Very, very important. There is need for minimum viable product, MVP. It is very, very important. You understand? But for many digital products, particularly innovative solutions, you see, explaining the idea to the people may not be sufficient. It may not be sufficient. And sometimes people need to experience something. They need to see it. And that's why MVP is very, very important. They need to use it. They need to click it. They need to navigate. You know, in product design, there's what we call UI, UX design. You know, that UIX means user interface. The interface, that's your MVP. Then the UX is user experience. How are they? What's their experience using your solution? What are the problems that they encounter using it? Lately, last week, somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Oh, I built a product and I want you to help us to market it." I said, "I cannot market something that I don't know about because my integrity is at stake." And he said, "Okay, we can give you access or your children access to the platform, let them use it and test run it, and there's a dashboard for the parents to check their progress, the progress of their children, and then when I understand how that thing works, and then we can now talk about partnership or whatever." And he gave me access to it, and at a point, you know, I was struggling with the interface. I struggle uploading my children's pictures. And I was able to do one of them. I wanted to sign up 2 of my children. So I was able to sign up for 1 because the solution only accepted one of them, and you know, keep complaining about the other one, that there are so many people in our pictures, and we had to take another picture, and the thing keep rejecting it. I said, "Okay, don't worry, you'll be using it. She will apply for something else." And you see, that is what we call user experience. They need to click it. They need to use it. They need to interact with it. You understand? They need to try to accomplish something with your solution. Then you begin to learn something. After some days, the guy reached out to me and said, "Sir, we'd like to get feedback from you. That's how we know how our solution is working. You know, that's how we know how we can upgrade it. Although it should be the work of a tester anyway, quality assurance, you know, guys. But most of all these startups now, they don't want to pay testers. So they will look for some guys or some some influencers that can help them to test, and and some influencers will not have that time to test, to identify some problems. Like if you are not like an entrepreneur or a product design person, or you are not a product thinking person, there are some problems you will not be able to know because you don't have that time, you don't have that experience, you are not an entrepreneur, you are not a business developer. So I want to appeal to everyone there, every inventor, every solution provider there. Please always earmark budget for testers because you will get honest feedback from them. But well, let's move on. So I would describe MVP in this way. I would describe MVP. I think I saw a definition of MVP somewhere, but let me just say this, that MVP is not necessarily the first cheap version of your final product. Because most of the time, when an entrepreneur hears MVP, they think is the first cheap version. Yes, there's a process to developing MVP. Where you do prototyping, wireframing, and the likes. All these things, I know them because some of us don't come out to talk about them. Some people will say, maybe he's reading AI. No, this is not AI. These are things that I am involved in at the early stage of my career, business development career. I know how to use some of this software to do prototype, wireframing and the likes, or even from paper, pen and paper. So, MVP is not necessarily the first cheap version of your product, of your final product. No, you can't get MVP, any product that you are designing or yes, there's also minimum viable service, MVS. There's MVP, there's MVS, there's MVO. MVP is minimum viable product. MVS is minimum viable service. If you are rendering service, you must be able to have the first cheap version of your service and test run it. And that's why you see some people who do trainings. They will do a freemium and say, they will do it as a freemium package before they charge premium. Now, some will cut the price because they are going to pay some things, they're going to spend some money to set up the program. So they will ask you, okay, instead pay 5,000 naira, pay 10,000 naira. The value of this training is 25,000, but pay 5,000, pay 10,000. However, they are test running the market. They are testing the market. So also is for innovative solution providers. Please. So MVP, like I said, is not the first cheap version of your final product. It is the smallest experiment that allows you to test your most important business assumption. One of my children is into software development, and most of the time he will want to do everything, perfect everything. I'll say, no, don't kill yourself, boy. You should be thinking like a business person. You don't think like a perfectionist. Think like, okay, what solution do you want to solve? Okay, I've developed it. As time goes on, we'll update this, we'll increase this. That's why you see every MVP has version 1.0. After that, there will be version 1.1.0. Like that before it gets to version 2.0. You understand? Because that distinction is extremely important. Very, very important. And let us imagine something, let's imagine that you want to develop an AI platform for Nigerian farmers. Thank God, Mr. Paul Ojo. Yes, Mr. Paul Ojo, I think he studied agriculture, so he's an agronomist. So I know that. I know that. Now let's assume you want to develop an AI platform for Nigerian farmers. And you believe that, okay, these farmers will photograph a diseased crop with their phones. And when they snap it, they will definitely get instant diagnosis and recommendation. Like I've used those solutions at the early stage of those developers. Most of them, they send it to me. Oh, we see that you are into agriculture, you plant things. Okay, use this solution, test run it for us. Most of these guys, they used to reach out to us to test things for them. Although some will pay token, some want you to do it for free. And most of the time, I'm honest with my reviews. and tell them, come, this thing is good, but you can improve here and there. Some, it is pricing that they will now want to shoot up. Nigeria, I say, come, calm down. You are just entering the market. I know that it costs you a lot to build this solution, but take it easy. There's a way you acquire that customer base, then you can increase your pricing later. Now, as this is just an illustration anyway. So you discover that, okay, a lot of farmers are having pest problem, insect problem with their crops, and you develop that solution and say, okay, just snap that whatever is your crop, and once you snap it, you've built your AI powered solution to identify the problem and make a recommendation for them to solve that problem. And let's say you did not even do your customer validation, you did not do anything, you just go ahead and spend 50 million to build that complete solution first. You spend 50 million, and you now discover that, oh, this thing will not fly because a lot of farmers don't have access to the internet because your solution needs internet connection. What will you do? You understand? A lot of farmers that, clusters of farmers are in villages, they are in remote areas, they are in places that they don't have access to the internet. So what will you do? And you have spent like 50 to 70, 100 million. You understand? Or there's another solution that is even giving it out for them for free, that is funded by an international organization. Maybe it's an NGO that does that for farmers. You understand? So all these things, you need to do your market validation before you jump and build anything called MVP. Yes, at the MVP, at that ideation stage, we call it ideation stage. At that stage, you spend less. Okay, Angela Monday says, network, please. Oh, now God go help us with network. Oh, and I hope, yes, I think my network is working very well here. It's working fine here. It's working well at my hand. Maybe it's over there. But you can watch the replay anyway, Monday. Now, I can also see Anuhu Boyi. Anuhu, watching from Bauchi State. That's my apostle. Thank you, sir. All right. Okay. So let's move on. So now, you need to at least validate the customers. Validate your solution. You wouldn't go and spend 50 to 70 million to build a solution and you now realize that this thing will not fly. No, you don't do that. I wouldn't advise that. First thing that you do is validate the problem. I've been saying this in my write-ups. Validate the problems. And how do you validate? Ask yourself, ask farmers. Are farmers losing significant money because they cannot identify crop diseases, or they cannot identify it quickly? And that's how this thing works. There are times you just notice some changes in your crop, and if you don't attend to it quickly, you will lose that crop on hectares of land that you have spent millions of naira to buy the crops. I mean the seeds or seedlings. So you ask yourself, are farmers losing significant amount of money because they cannot identify crop diseases quickly, fast enough? So if the answer is yes, if that answer is yes, then you go ahead and say, okay, how are they solving this problem today, in this present day? How are the farmers solving this problem before now? And how are they solving it today? And are they calling extension workers or officers to solve that problem? Because we have shortage of extension workers in Nigeria, that you call extension workers, and 1 week after, the guy has not showed up. Because we have shortage of extension workers. Some of them are not paid well. You understand? So they also have side hustles. So you have to understand all these things. Ask yourself, are they asking other farmers how to solve this problem? Are they searching online? Are they simply accepting the losses, or what? What are they doing? How painful is that problem? That is what they call problem validation. That is what we call problem validation. You understand? So now, once you are able to ask those questions and answer those questions, now you now know, okay, I've been able to validate this problem, that truly this problem exists. Then the next questions will now be, okay, will farmers actually pay for this solution, or will farmers actually use this proposed MVP or solution because it's still proposed. You understand? Will they use it? Okay, I told you that most of these guys used to reach out to me, and there was a time when I was first using that an app, to detect plant crop diseases. I was using it for free. I saw one, it was at the early stage. I was using it for free, and one day a guy reached out to me and said, "Oh, we developed something," and the first one I was using was developed by a foreign company anyway. So when the guy reached out to me and I saw that, oh, this is an indigenous solution, I said, oh, this is good. I think I like this. And the guy gave me access to use it for some days or some weeks. And after that, he now asked me a question and said, oh, how much will I be able to pay for this solution? And I said, I can't determine your price. You are the one, is your business, is your solution. How much are you willing to sell or to price your solution? And he was calling higher prices than the foreign app that I was using. And I now screenshot the app and sent it to him. He now said, this is our own. We develop it based on our own LLM. I said, no problem. So one day, I now use his own app to identify one of my crops like that. And he now told me something else. Then I used the same app, the previous app that I was using for the same plant. And the thing told me another thing. And I said, look at what is happening. I updated him. I said, look at what is happening now. He now asked me, say, we are still updating this. I said, okay, no problem. He was now trying to get very vital information from me. He said, so what is the name of that plant? I now told him. He said, but our own did not identify it. I said, yes. I said, but the foreign app that I'm using identified it. And that was how the guy calmed down. So you see, there is at MVP stage, there are a lot of things that you need to put in place. There are a lot of things you need to validate the problem and also validate the solution. And you cannot validate it if you don't interact with the users. You understand? All these things, yes, it will cost you, but it is part of your budget for building the solution. And for you to know that, okay, this thing will fly. And if it doesn't fly, you cut your cost or you cut your losses. You understand? So, like I said, will farmers actually use your proposed solution? That is what led to that story that I shared to you. And that will definitely require an MVP or MVS, minimum viable product or minimum viable service. Lately, while writing this Nigeria Wealth Shift series, a lot of people, I see their stuff, oh, I'm building this, I'm building that, I'm building this, I'm building that. And I look at it, I say, hey, this thing that you are building at MVP stage is too broad. Somebody say, I'm building this for farmers. And you cannot even niche down to, let's say, goat farmers, poultry farmers, vegetable farmers, or cassava farmers. How many of the clusters of farmers do you want to bring together? Considering some people they've never planted vegetable in their life and they are farmers. Some have never planted crop stuff. Some they do cash crop. Some they don't do all this quick stuff. Some don't do even crop. They are into livestock. Some they are, you understand? So when you say you want to build a solution for the Nigerian farmers, it's too broad. I wrote that in yesterday's content that the Nigerian farmers is too broad. This solution is for men. No, this solution is for Nigerians. No, it's for women. Identify their problem and niche down your solution to them and say, okay, this MVP is strictly for farmers who are or vegetable farmers. And when we say vegetables, it cut across greens, cut across even fruit vegetables like tomato, crop vegetables. We have crop vegetables too. You look at lettuce, all those things. So you still have a wider niche as you niche down. But if you say for farmers, generally, okay. You understand? So, and one thing about MVP is this. You see, your MVP does not necessarily need an expensive AI system initially at the initial stage. No. You could even use WhatsApp. You could use WhatsApp group to bring people together. I think Mr. Paul Ojo share something of that nature with me. You could bring a WhatsApp group, people, group, create a WhatsApp group, bring people together, people that they are users, they are direct users or target customers that you can do customer validation with. You understand? Let them come together on that WhatsApp group, and then let them begin to send pictures of their plant or crops to that group, and you have people behind the scene like agronomists that will view the picture or the photograph and send diagnosis. You understand? You have people that will be able to solve their problem at the back end. They don't need to know them. You understand? That will sit down and say, oh, this is the problem. And by so doing, you are building data. You understand? You are building what? You are building data. And you see, those farmers that you are trying to do customer validation with, they don't need to know all these things because that is their own behind the scene. That's your team. They don't need to know whether, you have 20 engineers, you have 4 developers, you have 10 testers, you have those that do no, they don't need to know all those things. They don't need to know what you are doing behind the scene. They don't need to know what you are testing. They don't need to know what is happening. All they need to know is, okay, this is the problem, and they were able to get the solution. You understand? And once you are able to do that, then you now go ahead and move to your product validation or solution validation, which is MVP. MVP is part of the validation. It is not an alternative to validation. MVP, the reason why it is called MVP is that, okay, this solution at least create minimum viable product that can solve this part of the problem that you want to solve. And if you can solve 5% of the problem, you gain the trust of some people that will say, oh, I think this guy, for him to even solve 5%, he will be able to solve 10. He will be able to solve 15% of our problem. And this is also where I think this faster horse story is useful. Yes, customers are usually very good at describing their frustrations, and they will be pushing you, hey, quickly create this solution, develop this solution for us. But they may not always be good at imagining radically different solutions. You need to understand that. You need to understand that. So don't simply ask yourself, oh, what product should I build now? No, don't do that. Don't allow anybody to push you into asking such questions. Instead, ask yourself, what are we trying to accomplish? What is it that I and my company wants to accomplish? What frustrations do you think you want to solve or respond to? What frustrates people? What frustrates your target audience that you want to respond to? And how much is the problem costing those people that you want to solve their problem? Because if it's not costing them anything, it's like you'll be begging them to use your solution. But once they know that, oh, this thing is between life and death, they will pay. They will use the solution. And you also need to ask questions like, okay, what alternatives are they currently using? Or are they currently paying for? Or they are not paying for any alternative? They will definitely look for an alternative. If it is to go and meet, for example, if it is farming stuff, agri-tech that you are working on, before you develop that solution, they've been using a traditional way to solve that problem. So all these things are things that you ask, and you also ask frequently. You frequently ask them, does this problem really occur? Because at times we can fall in love with our solution and don't know that the problem we want to solve does not really occur. What's the problem go in the first place? Or maybe one person went through that problem and you think everybody is going through that problem. No. That's why validation is very, very important. So I think this video is getting too long. Let me close at this point. So Mr. Paul Ojo, I think I've been able to do justice to your question. So I also want to appreciate everyone that are engaging with my content. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Yes, I hope to be doing this often and often, as fast as I see questions or topical issues that needs to be addressed. I will be glad to attend and do, unedited and unscripted and on the edited videos to respond to that. So on this note, I want to say thank you. And don't forget, like I said, subscribe to get exclusive benefit of my content. There are some content I'm creating now and that I will continue to create as long as you are subscribing for my subscribers. And it's not going to be available to the public. So, and it's very, very cheap. 3,500 naira every month. Very, very cheap. Wow. So I just, when Meta gave me that offer, I look at it, I did not want to activate it. But when I saw it, I said, I think it's a good one for some people who might not be able to afford my mentorship program. Just that, it will take some time to get everything done. But however, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Anuhu, thank you. Angela, Monday, thank you. And everyone that I cannot see your comments, but I know you watch this video, I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And see you when next I see you. I am Taiwo Balogun. God bless you. Bye. 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 Are you ready? Bye.